Hello everyone. So now that we got the engine stood up, probably haven't seen too many people install pistons like this. Usually it's on a engine stand. I don't have an engine stand accessible to me right now, and I don't have the money to buy one, to be quite frank. But not a huge deal. We're making it work, eh? Purchased this El Cheapo ring compressor online off eBay. The way these work is you ratchet this mechanism down and this shrinks and compresses the rings and allows you to punch them into the piston, so the piston will be sitting in here. Your connecting rod and everything will be down there. You don't want to hit them really hard. You just want to be careful. So you'll use this. I'll show you here in just a second. One thing I am going to do is go through and do the same thing we did with the main bearings. Clean all the surfaces on the connecting rod, bearing surface, and the end cap for the connecting rod. You want to clean all those surfaces just like we did. Repeat. You don't want any chance of a bearing being able to spin because there's oil on the backside. So just make sure everything's clean. Make sure your connecting rod threads for the cap are clean. And also I'm going to oil the piston pin because they're a little stuck. So I just want everything to be operating freely on first startup, so I will drop some little drops of oil in there. So I cleaned these pistons best I could. They came out all right. They're what you'd expect out of an old engine. They're not wonderful, but they're not bad. So when you go to install these, actually now I think about it, there's some things I need to explain here. These right here are your compression rings, these top two rings. These handle the blow-by that goes past the piston as it's being drove up and ignited. What you don't want is you don't want the piston rings lined up like this, or else you'd have really bad. It would not be good. And you also don't want, on a piston there is a way, you do not want orientation. You do not want any ring gap to be on this face or this face. The reason is, as these are the driving faces, right here and here, these faces are the driving faces when the piston's going up and down the cylinder wall. These experience lots of force here and here. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna want this ring facing here. You're gonna want this ring 180. So you're gonna want this ring all the way over here. When you go to install these, you'll slide this over it, you'll compress it, it'll compress these rings down, otherwise it won't be able to slide into the block, and you'll tap on it with a hammer and it'll pop right in. Again, you want to make sure this surface is clean, and the cap that goes on here, you want to make sure that's clean as well, and you want to make sure these threads are clean. And I'm going to oil through these little holes here, the piston ring dealio. So yeah, that's a piston and a connecting rod, and the connecting rod end cap, and the bearing sitting here, and that goes on the connecting rod journals on the crank. Alright everyone, just to show you all what a connecting rod looks like when it's assembled, minus the bolts that go on top here. That's got the new bearings in it, and that's what it looks like. So as you can see, this face is radiused more than let's see if we can get it on camera. You can see that versus that one. You can see the difference there versus there. So these are directional. This surface here matches up on the cap as well, and like I've said before, on the piston you can see that that little mark there faces the front of the motor, and since I'm doing this motor straight up, that little mark will face that way. So your journal sits in here, and this is all oiled from your main caps and stuff like that. So just got brake clean, a rag, and I'm going through wiping this surface. I didn't wipe these on that one. Oh no, I did. So I took this right here, just scrubbed around this, blew it all off with air, wiped all of it down, and on these I am wiping all the surfaces there down, these surfaces and the journal surface where the bearing goes, and then they will be ready to get slapped together. The reason I have them like this is everything on the shop is orientated this way, so just tip that up. So these 4 go to those, these 3 go to these 3, and this one right here is obviously on there. Just to show you guys real quick how I'm going to lubricate the pinholes, I just got a pick. I'm going to dip that in there and go like that and like that, and set that down there and work that back and forth like so. Tip it back and forth. As you can see, we got our lubricant on there. We also got it on that side. Now we're going to go ahead and stick that in. Okay everybody, so what we're going to do is I'm going to double check, make sure our rings are in the right spots. There and there. Make sure our bottom oil wiping ring is in the right spot. And we're going to go like this. We're going to slide this over it like so. You guys can't see. Slide it over and tighten it up. Ideally you wouldn't have it this loose to begin with, but that's all right. Piston is right there. Sub-ideal, but so what we're going to want to do is, now that we're going to install the piston, we're going to look. The tab on the piston is facing up or towards the front of the engine, towards the radiator. We're going to quickly wipe out the inside of our cylinder because it looks like it's all hairy and disgusting. Do a visual inspection, make sure nothing's wrong. Now, if you have time and money, honing this out and replacing the rings is a good idea. It's going to be a big task, and you want to make sure you know how to use a cylinder hone. There's 2 types. There's a puck hone and there's a ball hone. Ball hones have a whole bunch of little round balls, and puck hones are typically a 3 puck that goes in here. And if you do that, you want to replace your rings because you are enlarging the size of the cylinder just a little bit. Just beware, replacing rings is a ton. You have 2 combustion rings times 8 cylinders, 2 oil wiping rings times 8 cylinders, and 2 of those crinkly rings, and 1 of those crinkle rings, I can't remember what they're called, times 8 cylinders. So you have a lot of rings, but nevertheless, looks good to go. Everything looks a-okay. So what we're going to do, double check that's facing up or towards the front of the engine. The more beveled surface, oh, I got some goop on me, is also facing upward. And this is cylinder number 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide it on in there like so. Oh, hold on. We're going to slide it on in there like so. We're going to use the, really this is not the ideal way to do this. You want to slide this up a little bit more and make sure that it stays together. You're going to use the kind of, I can't remember, there's a name for them. I would call them like the ears of the piston, to center it in the piston like so. And you're going to want to take a hammer. I'm going to take a rubber, well, I guess I could use this guy here. You're going to want to make sure this is clean. I'm going to hold this like this, and I'm just going to make sure everything in there looks a-okay. Is this right? Wait a minute. Alrighty everyone, I screwed up. So the way I had this orientated is this motor was 180 flipped flat. So, wait a minute. Yeah. So this was flipped. So this side would be on this side, and this was facing up. This was facing down, and I had it flipped around. So because if you flipped it down flat how I had it with the cylinders facing like this, the crank end would be facing this way, but I've done everything on this motor facing out. I kind of screwed up. I really shouldn't have done it like that. I should have done it in orientation with the truck, which the truck's pulled in facing this way, but regardless. So this is actually cylinder number 1. This is true cylinder number 1 in the vehicle. This is passenger side, even though right now it's driver side. This is passenger. This is driver. Really stupid. I shouldn't do it like that, but I'm gonna deal with what I got here. So we're gonna go ahead and wipe this out. That the little pin is facing up and that the beveled side is facing up. We're gonna slip this in here like so. We're gonna use the ears to align it. We're gonna take this and we're gonna pop it right on in there. Just like that. Double check on the back, make sure it's not running into anything. We're good to go. So what we're going to do now is take it and push it down in the cylinder. You want to make sure that it's not going to get the, I'll move you guys around here real quick. You want to make sure that as you push it through, it's not going to get the journal. And if you can't push it with your hand, you can use the butt of the hammer to tap it. What you don't want to happen is you don't want these threads to gash the journal. There you go. It's going to move up and down a teeny bit. That's just the way it goes. The other thing you want to make sure is that your bearing in there is flush and hasn't slipped one direction or the other. Other than that, you can just let that sit there like that. Now I'm going to go get the cap. I'm going to double check my cap, make sure everything's clean on it. Looks good to go. I'm going to make sure that the orientation of the bevel is facing up as everything else is. I'm going to take it, slide it on very carefully like so. Make sure that everything lines up. Run these down. As you can see, it's going to be harder to turn because there's going to be friction. That right there is what your piston does. Swings around at a gazillion miles an hour. So, what you want to do now is bring this way out here. And you know, you can get kind of confused right now. There's no timing or anything weird. This piston's not doing anything at all. When we go to time the engine, it'll be complete. The engine can only be in one spot, and that's with this. This guy will be right about, let's see. Well, it'll actually be, I didn't mean timing. You want to make sure in a previous video, previous clip or something, you want to make sure that your flex plate lines up. It's got a weight on it. You want to make sure that it lines up. There's this weight down here on the bottom. These weights has a line, and the flex plate lines up with that when it bolts up to the crank. We'll show you guys that later on, but regardless, this is good to go. Actually, it looks like it'll stay slid up, probably because I got it tight. It's not gonna ride like this, where it's up against the side here. They kind of self-center out. It'll ride probably a little bit further down, somewhere around in there. But yeah, so now we're gonna get another piston ready to go for right here. And I'll show you guys that one more time, and then I'm gonna go ahead and throw all these in. You guys don't need to watch me install 8 pistons, so I'm gonna go ahead and get another one prepped and ready. We'll pop it in there. Alrighty everybody, we got piston number 2 going in here, right here. Again, we're gonna set it down. Everything's cleaned and greased up. We're actually not gonna set it there while we're wiping our cylinder out. We're gonna say, okay, the The little tab doodad is right there. That's gonna face up. The bevel is facing up, so we're gonna flip it around. Tab facing up, bevel facing up. We're gonna slide it on in. Align the ears. Again, I did align all of the combustion rings facing this way, not here or here. You're just gonna wanna take it and we popped the ring out, so what we're going to do is I am going to grab, okay, this is an example of where it's not wanting to go in, so what we're going to do, we're going to pull it back out very carefully, maybe. Come on, don't want to come back out. So what we'll do, actually, don't cut yourself because it is sharp. Okay, now we're gonna hold it on there, pop it right in. Ta-da! You know what I'm gonna do to check these bearings? I'm gonna go along with a pick and make sure that they're centered. Because you don't want a bearing that's off center, that'll cause problems. So I'll take that one back off, make sure all the bearings up there are good. Do have a side that it's worn more on them, so that's the side I'll run down. When you do torque these down, you want to use oil like we did on the main caps. Can't remember what the torque spec is for these, but for right now it's going to be hand tight and just annealed in oil. Alright everyone, something real fast I want to show you guys. There's two things. You want to make sure that your bearings are lined up in here. I only had one out of these four do it that was just off, and it was off by like a 64th. You know, it wasn't anything crazy. So I just pushed it over. And the other thing you're going to want to make sure you do is on these, they're actually different. So the little dash mark is there, and the little dash mark faces up. And instead the bevel is on that side, because the bevel is obviously facing the bottom. If you don't know the purpose of the bevels, if you didn't, let's see, where's one that's out? If you didn't have a bevel, it would cut. So on this one, this side has that bevel, and this side's sharper. On the other ones, the bevels will be facing down, but the little indent in the piston head will be facing up. As you can see, indent, 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 indent. They're all in. I haven't torqued them down yet. I ended up having to screw around with one of these because I was second guessing myself. It was number 3 right here. I just wanted to make extra sure I did everything right. So I took it off, cleaned it. I ended up doing that 2 times. Just want to make extra sure. I just want to make sure that everything's clean. There is some lint, but I can't do anything about it. I don't, unless I wanted to buy some. Well, you know, t-shirts are actually pretty good for non-lint, but these towels suck for lint. But I've just been blowing them off best I can with my breath. Usually a lot of the lint will come off. It's just hanging on a little bit, so if you give it a, you know, it'll come off. Or I've used the air hose, but other than that, I'm gonna get these all slammed in. By slammed in, obviously take your time and stuff. So the way I did it is, just to run you through the procedure, pull the piston out, the cap's not on it, pull the piston out, and the bearings aren't in it. So I'd pull the piston out, take my brush, clean the surfaces on the threaded end, on the connecting rod end, and clean the threads off with that, blow it off. Then I'd bring it back over, set it down, put some lubricant in these holes, move this thing back and forth a little bit. Then I would align all my rings this way, and then I would move on to wiping down surfaces, installing bearings, wiping down bearings, etc. And then you just want to make sure that, one thing I did notice is when you tighten it down with this, it does tend to want to move the bearings around, not a whole lot. You know, you pretty much have a good area from about there to there that seam can ride in. Plus, you have to remember that seam is way smaller when it's compressed. I mean, it's tiny. So also make sure you don't reinstall old bearings. The way I can tell is no bearings in either package. I don't even know where the other package is. Where is it? Right here. Both my packages are empty, and none of these bearings look new. Obviously they're all old, so I'm gonna go ahead and get these put in, and I will catch you guys when we are ready to torque them all down. 9/16. Spot on. Okay. Alrighty, everyone. I got all of them installed. I just sat here, double checked everything, just went over in my head. It's always good to go over one last time, so you know, if something goes wrong, I can say I really tried to double check. Everything's in. It's a little harder to turn over as expected, but I can still, you know, turn it over, and that's with this little hand tool here, hand wrench. So, and I can do it one-handed. So, and the torque range is 40 to 45. So we're gonna get to torquing those down. I think first I'm gonna start off at 20. Just start off at 20 flat. This torque wrench is kind of hard to read. I don't like doing stuff just immediately 100%, so oh. I'm actually going to get them all, I'm going to get them snug first. Alrighty everyone, it is a new day. I figured I'd show you guys real quick. I ended up having to sandblast all the stuff I didn't want to sandblast because sandblasting is dirty and sand gets everywhere, and especially on something that's going to be seeing the internals of the engine, you want to make sure there's no sand after you're done. We got the oil pan. This is going to be the driver's side valve cover and the passenger side valve cover and the intake manifold. That thing probably weighs, seriously, like no joke, that probably weighs about 10 pounds lighter. That thing was really bad. This exhaust crossover right here was completely clogged with this right here. This is a chunk of carbon that has been in there so long, it's like a rock. Look at that. That was completely clogged. So I went ahead and did everything. I did the insides as well. As you can see, if you ever wonder what the inside looks like, no baffling or anything. It's simple. This, wow, that's hot. I'm letting them sit in the sun so they can get warm because I'm about to paint them. And that one's the same as that one. And what I did is I sandblasted them. Then I sandblasted them. I think I blew them off. Then I brought them over here, and I just used water and a brush, no soap, no nothing. Went over them really well. Took my time. You really don't want sand in an engine of any amount. Like, sand is really bad. So did that while it was still wet. I mean, I drenched the thing, ran water, ran water, just flooding it basically. Flooding each part. Then I took the air, blew everything out. The reason I blew everything out is it also prevents it from rusting right away, so I can get paint on these before they would, you know, get a whole bunch of surface rust on them. It also helps to clear any. It's another precaution just in case. You know, you want to make sure you don't get any sand anywhere. So. It's very clean. I never realized on this motor, it's actually pretty cool. This is facing the front of the motor. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I never noticed that. Down inside there, you can't really tell, but there is a ribbing. And on the underside of this, I don't want to ruin the Carhartt deal. As you can see, there we go. Nice and clean. I didn't know there was a plug there. I don't know what that's for. That's like a crossover access, I'm gonna assume, for the heat. There's still some water down in there. But yeah, so now I'm gonna go paint these. I'm not using any primer because I'm using a high temp stove paint that's good to 1200 degrees. You don't really have to do that, but I want it to stay on there and not boil off. So yeah, I'm gonna do white. we'll see how it looks. Wide engines look pretty sweet if you do them correctly. So yeah, we'll see how these turn out. And I'm gonna just do it right over there on the ground with a piece of cardboard, big piece, so I don't get any, you know, bad juju or anything. So we're gonna get right to it. Catch you guys when these are all painted. Okay everybody, it has been a while once again since I've recorded. I've been doing lots of painting, and I ran into some things with this that I want to talk about. So this was originally up on end in the last clip you saw, and I'll be putting a disclaimer probably beforehand. Most of you are going to have an engine stand, if not all of you. But if you do assemble an engine sitting upright, so what happened is I was going along and I was like, it's kind of, they were getting tighter, which was kind of, it's normal. You're tightening things are going to have tighter clearances because all the bearings and stuff are new. So I tightened them down. I tightened these two here, which is going to be the third set of journals for these two pistons. And this one right here completely locked it up. The motor would not move, so I was like, oh, that's weird. So I was like, okay, now I'm a little scared. So I stopped. I went ahead and took it back off, and you know what, now that I'm looking at that, I just realized something. I wonder how that happened. Okay, I gotta fix that. Somebody has already been in this motor. That says 2.2, that says 1.1. That says 5.5, which that's not number 5. I don't know why that's up here. I for sure did this correct. Like, I put the motor back together right. I'm pretty sure I did. That's kind of weird. But that says 6.6. That says 7.7. So I guess what I'm gonna do, I didn't even realize it, I need to switch these two caps around. I'm glad I saw that. Someone's been in this, well, I don't know if someone's been in this motor already. These are stamped, but everything in this motor is stock. Like the bearings are Ford bearings, I believe. So I don't know, but anyways, regardless, I tightened this down. I was like, okay, something's not right. This came up tight. It's being weird. So I loosened it back up, looked at it. The bearing had like just little micro scratches, nothing like concerning, so I was like, okay, whatever. Torqued it back down, it was fine. It was a little hard to turn, but it wasn't like gnarly hard. So I went online, asked some people, and I was like, this thing's kind of, it was definitely harder to turn when it was up on end. And I didn't realize that when you have an engine up on end, everything is weighted towards one direction. All of these faces are riding on each other. This thrust surface is riding hard. This thrust surface basically is carrying the entire assembly, so it was way harder to turn. It took 37 foot-pounds to turn it with a torque wrench out on the end, and after I laid it down and spun it over, it ended up taking like 30 to 32, so it went down by I would say over 5 foot-pounds. And now that I see this here, I'm gonna have to switch these around, which, you know, it's really strange that these pistons are the way they are. I don't know why, because I for sure put this back together the way that it was. Like, I'm like 99% sure this all went together the same way. So, but regardless, when you go to rotate the engine over, make sure it's laying flat. Otherwise, it'll be all loaded up on one end, and it'll be hard to turn and be weird. So, take these off, switch them around, put some more lubricant on them. Again, it's going to be 20 foot-pounds and then 42. I ended up over torquing them as well. Actually, I went to 47. It was supposed to be 43, between 40 and 45. So I went back through and torqued them all down to 43. And the other thing is, I'll be fixing that. But the other thing is, oh no, I guess that's right, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 7, 6, 5. So I guess that's right. I don't know about that. It's kind of weird, but what's really odd to me is that someone took the time to do that, but they didn't replace the bearings. Like, the bearings were for sure, unless someone ordered like Motorcraft bearings, which I don't know, maybe they did. Regardless, I don't really care. After turning it over a little bit, this is a 10-inch guy. I also added some oil. I just poured like some motor oil over all the stuff to make sure everything was lubricated. On first turn, it's a little difficult, but then it's pretty easy here. You have to remember this is with a 10-inch driver here. I mean, it's not, you know, like I'm having to, it's not a whole lot. But now that I see that that is, that those are reversed, I'll go ahead and fix that. So we'll go ahead and bring that one up top and I'll swap those out. I wonder if I have, no. Another way you can tell to double check to make sure everything's right is the beveled edges on them face out. And the beveled edges on these are the opposite of these grooved edges here. You can see how this top piece has got a groove right there and it goes over. And that one's got one there. Those face in. The bevels are opposite of that, so the bevel's out here and out here on all of them. And I did that right on this. It's not the same. It's not the same rod, so that would cause probably something to be a little haywire. But other than that, you just want to make sure, double check everything. I got very scared when it was tight, but after working it around a teeny bit, I just got worked up. I was like tripped out. And you got to remember that when you do a motor, and these cylinders aren't honed or anything, no springs. When you do all that, this motor is going to be pretty tight at first because everything is like at the maximum drag it could be. Like you have cross-hatch cylinder walls with brand new rings, with brand new, I mean everything. If you were doing this, you know, like 100%. And even with this, cleaned cylinder walls, rings are clean, pistons are clean, everything's been cleaned off of all the residue. And I have oiled it with some WD-40 just as a precautionary, like no rusty, because we don't want rust. But you just got to remember that it might be a little tight. Now, if it takes two hands to spin this thing over, or if you're really having to like oomph on it, there's something wrong. I would say probably over 35 foot-pounds to get it to turn. I don't know. I actually don't know. I've read some engines turn over with way more, so you might ask on a local forum or something. I'll tell you what, making a forum account on this FordTrucks.com, I believe is what it's called. Man, those guys helped me out a lot. Huge shout out to all of them if any of you ever watch this. That forum kicks butt, man. That forum's awesome. So I'll get those swapped around. Before I do that though, I need to remember that. I'm actually gonna do that before I do these. These are gonna be for the next video. I'm gonna end this video. I have no clue how long this like video has been. It's been so stretched out, waiting on parts. This has been a task. Let me tell you guys, this has not been very easy to get all of this done. Next up is going to be heads. The next video will probably be the end video. I'm doing the heads, throwing everything back on. I'll be timing everything and putting it back in the truck. Because I really don't have that much more. I just got to take these apart, clean them, clean all this nastiness, make sure nothing's majorly wrong. I got to install these little hats that I got. Real quick, I'll be interjecting somewhere towards the end of this video, in the end of this video when I'm outroing and talking about the engine. After taking those off, one of the bearings had a big old groove worn in it. Nothing I can do about it. I'm super bummed. I'm just gotta move on. I just gotta move on from it. It will just be a spot that holds oil. You want to make sure that these are right. So it would have ran. It would have just worn that bearing out, you know, prematurely quicker. It would have worn a surface weird. But the other one was fine. That one definitely had some wear. This motor is way easier to turn. So let it be known what, you know, one rod bearing will do. Because the other one was completely fine. It had no wear on it at all. I could have run that one over there and it'd been great. But this one, number 4 and number 3, really screwed it up. So it's way easier to rotate now. I'm bummed about the groove in the thing. It barely catches the fingernail, but whatever. So just figured I'd throw that in here. For the valves, and I got another one down there to do, but you'll see all that in another video. I have been doing a little bit of cleanup in here, and then out here you'll see I ended up painting everything with high temp stove paint, and I wasn't going to do this, but I ended up doing it. Camera's blown out. As you can see, I chose white because white looks really sick when it's all together. Pretty awesome. As you can see, I did that. Harmonic balance was black. Doesn't want to show up very good. There we go. And then those as well. And then I got the headers over here. I put an entire can on these headers, so I wanted them to be painted on thick. And one of those ended up giving me some problems. The one that I had to cut way earlier in the video, that's just screwed in there by hand. I ended up having to drill it out and re-tap, and some of the threads are gone, but hoping down the road to get some headers for this. Maybe, I don't know. I'll just buy a new manifold. And we got this oven here. My dad has used it for Cerakoting, and I'm just curing all this off here. As you can see, we got the all the goodies in there. So I'm gonna let that cook off. I had it at 475, but now I got it at 350 because it was getting pretty warm. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I did paint the underside of this guy. This was so clogged, this exhaust port, that you guys already saw it. Chunks were coming out of carbon. So this engine was, the term's kind of weird to use, but I don't like the term, actually. I don't like the term clapped out. It was worn out. This engine was on our last leg, but save the old 351 modified. Not very many people do this, so it's kind of cool. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed this video. May the Lord bless you and watch over you in all your ways. If you did enjoy this and you haven't been watching the series, a like would be awesome. And if you subscribe, that would be really sweet. But other than that, this has been a trek and a half. This is the first engine I've ever done, and it's quite funny that it's modified. Most people, you know, throw modifieds in the garbage. Most people don't like modifieds at all, but it would be like me to do that, you know. V6 Mustang, that's nice. Not very many people have those. An Audi 5000, no one has those, and a modified that people hate. But, you know, the modified has a special place in my heart now, because it's the first engine I've ever rebuilt. I didn't plan on it, but the Lord did plan on it. So, next video, those are getting tackled, and this sucker is getting put back together. Hopefully, it doesn't do anything bad. That'll suck. Everything seems good. So, you know, my brain wants to say it's gonna spin a bearing, or I'm gonna time it wrong. Those have been my two big things, but you know, I really don't think it's gonna do that. Everything's a-okay, you know, and each experience is gonna be user specific. But other than that, may the Lord bless over you and watch over you in all your ways, and catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. My name's Tyler. God bless. Peace out. God bless. Stressful.